Hey friends, let's move on to another critical, important component that contributes significantly to the improved performance of your game, to enhanced enjoyment, to better preparation. And that relates to good course strategy and course management. Initially, let me talk about a golf goal. You need to set yourself a goal, a realistic one, but a stretch one. Let's just take, for example, you want to regularly break 80 on your course or other courses that you plan to visit and play in, or that you are participating in competitions on. So you establish yourself an overall goal, and that will allow you to work from that and aim towards that as you compile your specific course management plan. Secondly, you need to develop a strategy that suits your swing type, your shot shape, your preferred flights, trajectories of your shots. So the strategy must fit your swing. And then thirdly, you have to have a specific course management plan that fits your distances with specific clubs. So once you know your average and sustainable distances, ideally the carry distance for every club, you can begin to map out your course plan with that in mind. One key point, very important: golf is a game of misses. And so what you need to think about is how good your bad shots are. Everyone has bad shots, everyone has misses. It's whether you can reduce the number of misses and bad shots and whether you can contain them in a manageable way. So you're not supposed to fit the golf course to your eye. You're supposed to fit your eye to the golf course. To repeat the key point, it was Ben Hogan who said that golf is a game of misses, and he who misses best wins. As I intimated and indicated to you, your carry distance is important. Your flight is important because that affects how you manage the course, how much roll you'll get, what happens in wind, but also your dispersion, your north and south dispersion and east and west dispersion in particular. So depending on your average dispersion pattern for each club, as you map out each hole and the plan for each hole, you need to keep that dispersion and carry distance in mind. Now, we talked about breaking 80. You can achieve that a number of different ways, and this is important because as you map out the course, you may want to think about it differently. So for example, you could achieve, if it's a par 72 course, you could achieve that with 6 bogeys and 12 pars. Or alternatively, 5 birdies and 6 pars, and the rest made up of some combination of bogeys, double bogeys and trebles. So you can achieve the same score on a course depending on also how you map it out. So not only do you play to your handicap, but if you have that target, as you map out the course depending on the difficulty of different holes where hazards are as you do your initial mapping, you may want to think about, well, in this particular hole, it's going to be rather difficult for me the way I flight the ball, the distance I hit, because I'll be likely aiming to a hazard or out of bounds. So let me come a bit less, let me go for a bogey on that hole. I'll go for a birdie on an easier hole. That suits me and my swing and my flight and my distances. In this regard, it's worth noting what Trevor Immelman said, which is learn scorecard management because you'll be a better player because of it. So let me cover a few really critical and key elements. Firstly, manage every hole, plan every hole, working from the green back, not working from the tee to the green. So map it from the green back. Let's say you like to hit a 100-yard shot into the green. You're very reliable on that shot with your pitching wedge or your sand wedge, whichever it happens to be. Then go hole by hole and say, if I can end up 100 yards into the green, I know that I will do a really good second shot. So you will see going on in the background, there are many apps, just have picked one at random, that allow you well beforehand to map holes for yourself, select the course, go hole by hole. You will see me moving the point of strike at different distances, and you can save each one and have your own then yardage book ready, well in hand, to suit your distances and your shots. So you can work back from the green and the pin for the shot you want, and then whether you're taking 2 shots after that or 1 shot, you, depending on it's a par 4, par 5 as the case may be, you work back from that. And you may find that in some cases that on a par 5 you don't need to take therefore off the tee a driver. You may want to use a 4 hybrid or a 5 wood even, because that's going to get you to the distance you want for your second shot to get you to that 100-yard point. So each hole, map it accordingly. Very easy to do. You can do it equally on Google Earth. It has a ruler function and you can save that as well. There are several now apps that allow you to do that are essentially free apps that allow you to map beforehand. So do use these tools to help you develop each plan for every hole, especially if you're going to have competitions on that course, and you may want to have practice rounds on any course that you're on with that plan in mind, so you start to see if in fact that plan is working out well for you, or you need to make some slight adjustments well before a match or a competition. If you're going for the green and you're really looking at a par, and that's your second shot and say it's a par 4, then aim for the middle generally. Don't take too much risk going for the pins or short-siding yourself. Short-siding yourself meaning going to the part of the green which you might miss and then having a very short green to work with to back to the pin. So aim for the middle if the par works out that way. Another tip, very important, take an extra club if necessary. In fact, TrackMan data tends to show that for the average good even club golfer, 80% of their shots are too short and perhaps 20% too long. So err on the side of taking an extra club, maybe doing a 3/4 swing if necessary, but you will find, I think, that if you really say, look, I'm hitting my 7-iron 150 yards as a carry, and that's, with a perfect shot, well, maybe take a 6 and have an easier swing. Land at 140, let it roll. So think about taking an extra club. Do a lot of practice of approach shots from around the green. Again, TrackMan data tends to show that at least 25% of your round is approach shots. So if you can really improve those approach shots, your score will significantly improve. You'll enjoy the game much more. And try different clubs for the same approach shots. Try different trajectories and roll for the same club, so that as you get to those approach shots, you have a variety of options in your toolkit. Either the same club, which you can hit in a different way, Or you could use an 8 iron for that chip, or you could use a pitching wedge for that chip, or you could even use a 6 iron for that chip with more roll. So if you practice those approach shots, that 25% that I referred to, and you begin to improve both your accuracy, your dispersion, your variability in your toolkit, you will significantly improve your game. I want to now give you 12 or 13 tips around all of this, which I think will be critical to your course management. And you should bear in mind in your practice and actually write it down, see what you're doing well, perhaps identify the ones you're not doing so well, and you may need to vary your shots or vary your clubs in your next practice round. As you refine it, and if you take these tips as part of your toolkit, as a checklist to take off, I think that you will find, for example, breaking 8 years in the example, if that suits you, that I gave, very easy to do. So without further ado, let's get to these key tips. In no particular order, but I think they're all very important in different ways. Firstly, stick with your plan. Once you've made your plan and you've practiced your plan, stick with it. Don't be tempted to then say, oh, my playing partner hit that much further, I'm also going to copy him, or wow, he managed to fade it, and you tend to be a draw off the ball. Stick with the plan that you've worked out, hole by hole, shot by shot. Secondly, related to that, don't try uncontrollable shots, so shots that really are not in your toolkit, are not in your bag, are not shots that you really know how to manage and control. Go for shots that you have a greater predictability about. Don't try that hero shot if it's not in your repertoire. Not all of us are a Phil Mickelson and can do some of the magic around the greens that he does. If you still manage to get it there with a nice little roll of the 9 iron, don't try that flop lob shot if it's not something you have great predictability about or are good at. Next, ignore bad weather. Many times people get put off thinking in bad weather or strong wind, I have to play differently. No, stick to your game plan, stick to your shots. There are slight variations that you have to think about if the course is wet versus dry, ball position, roll amount. You might want to think about some elements of how far you swing in the wind so that you keep the ball below the wind. But those are all things that you should build into your repertoire. Ignore bad weather as it's going to spoil my game. You have your game, you have your swing, you have your shots. Stick to it. Another important tip, when you get to the ball, check your lie, because it might be on a divot or it might be on a slight slope. So your normal shot from a flat slope, if it's on a divot or a slight slope, would be a little bit different. That's to do with ball position, it's to do with where you put your hand down or up on the grip, depending on whether it's downhill or uphill. You check your lie, and that should be part of your setup routine. Now, if you have a tight lie, particularly in the rough, or a fluffy lie, that's also going to affect how you hit the ball, whether you put it more forward or more back, and whether you need to use more bounce or less bounce. So not only part of checking your lie, but in a tight lie or a fluffy lie, just make part of your setup routine that slight check. Now, most people who tend to go for the flag, and this relates to taking an extra club, tend to hit, on average, 20% of their shots short of the flag, 5% too long on the flag. So keep that in mind as you choose your club, but also as you think about, in relation to that club, the roll that will happen after it. So obviously the roll will be more for a chip with a 8 iron than with a pitching wedge. keep in mind the context of most people tending to hit too short. The other tip which I referred to was avoid being short-sighted on the green. So don't go for the pin where it's a percentage shot, a high percentage shot that you've got to, or maybe it's rather a low percentage shot where you're, in fact, if you don't get it absolutely right, you're going to short side yourself, and then it's going to be a really difficult up and down. Go for the safer part of the green, the wider part of the green. Plan for risks. We will all miss-hit. We'll all get into difficult recovery positions. Part of that is practicing a lot of recovery shots. But plan for risks. So in your planning, if there seems to be several risks as you map out your plan, also plan in your mind that if I get caught out, I can hit it back onto the fairway very easily, and that hole might be something where I would go for a bogey instead of a par deliberately. If I hit it well, then even that's great. If not, I've already planned for it. So plan for risks. Another very important tip, bunkers are often a very good miss, because if you worked on your bunker game and you can get up and down well, then aiming for the bunker rather than the very tight area of the green, or over it and down a hill or into a hazard, is not a bad place to be. Plan for uphill putts. So as you map your course, look at the elevation elements too, and where you want your shot to end up is ideally on an uphill putt. Downhill putts are much more difficult to do because getting the pace becomes even more difficult, and the line and the undulations. So plan ideally for uphill, of course flat putts if that's the nature of those greens. An important mental aspect is recall past success on those holes, whether it was in the practice round or in the course you regularly play. On every hole, recall your past success and take that with you, because that mental positivity is critical. And then finally, trust the entire process that you set apart. Then enjoy the planning and then relax and execute well. Go positive, recall past successes, take your toolkit with you. Happy golfing. See you on the flip side. There's some exciting stuff to come. The next one will be on nutrition and diet and good preparation for energy levels on the course. Cheers. Happy golfing.